So Dave is going to give you a talk on the history of our underground reservoir. So please enjoy. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, everybody. Hope you enjoy this because I have not seen it. So, right. Well, I wrote this history book because there was a time, an open event when I was up here, and talking to people, and they'd all got different viewpoints of when the whole thing, society started. So I thought, right, the thing to do is document the whole thing, hence this particular book. Now, it was suggested by a number of my friends and colleagues that I ought to do the same thing with the reservoir. Thinking, well, I was probably around at the time anyway. Well, I wasn't. I was here watching Statue of Liberty being delivered in New York Harbor. So there's a thing to bear in mind, that our reservoir was started construction at the same time that the Statue of Liberty went up. Right, so where do you start looking for the history of this reservoir? Well, obviously, Coxmoor pumping station. So I made inquiries there, never heard of it. Coxmoor Reservoir, don't know about it, don't know anything about it whatsoever. So I thought, well, this is going to be a bit of fun. Right, what other avenues have I got? Try Severn Trent, the water people. Don't know anything about it. We can go through our archives if you wish, but it's going to cost. So you could spend time and a lot of money going through their archive and probably find nothing at all. Okay, so the next thing, I'll go to Ashfield Council and see what they know. Nothing. I thought, this is going to be difficult. I'll probably be better off doing the memoirs of a public toilet than the history of this thing up here. Anyway, so I thought, right, let me use the Society's newsletter and put an article in there and see if anything knows anybody knows anything. And sure enough, our quizmaster came back to me, Barry. He'd been working on something for one of his quiz questions related to the comparison of the size of the reservoir, its capacity, against some of the later American space rockets. And in this particular process, he got to this chap at Nottingham University who passed on these files of old newspapers at a particular time. So you can see Nottingham Guardian, June 1885, Nottingham Daily Express, 86, Nottingham to the Mansfield Reporter. Now, these three, the Nottingham Daily Express, Evening Post and Reporter, they gave details about the actual opening ceremony and one thing and another. And within that data was a lot of the information that thought, oh, right, this is the sort of thing we're looking for. The top one was just purely an invitation for tenders for the work. Now, this is the Nottingham Guardian, so you can see what it's like. It was so difficult to read. One of them, and I can't remember which, it was column after column after column, and it was difficult to read. Some of the sentences were so long, by the time you read them, you got to stop to draw breath. You know, they just went on and on and on. And I thought, well, how are we going to do this? So the only thing to do was, I looked at it and considered what to do, was to get pencil and paper, or pen and paper, and sit down and read through it a bit at a time and write it out by hand. And then eventually what I did, I transcribed that into a particular folder. Now, these 4 newspaper articles and the corresponding transcripts that I did They're all on the society computer. So if anybody at any time wants to pick them up and read them, they're obviously they're at liberty to do so. This is the tender one that was in the, I think, Guardian asking for contractors for the work and so on and so forth. You could look at the plans for a price of, in those days, £5 and 5 shillings, which today is around about £650. So here's what it's asking for: the construction of their waterworks, including a sinking a well in the new red sandstone. I'll come on to that in a bit. The erection of the engine house, boiler house, engineers lodge at Rushley near Mansfield. Building a covered service reservoir at Coxmoor, that's this. And then laying and jointing 10¼ miles of cast iron piping and providing fixing the required valve hydrant and other apparatus. It's at the end of the day, it's quite a complex thing. Now, another thing I found in scratching my head, Googling, doing a lot of Googling, I found this, the history of Sutton in Ashfield, which is page after page after page. But in the index, there was this, the water undertaking, which was just a couple of sentences, just covering what we're on about. So you can see, it just again basically said construction of auxiliary pumping station at the corner of Bucknell Road and Alfred Road, water reservoir going up to Blackwell and Normanton and so on and so forth. And a total capital account of £39,000 in those days, so that's getting on for 5 million at today's prices. Right now, at this point, I want to introduce you to this guy. Arthur Samuel Unwin Heathcote. This family have lived in Sutton, or part of this family have lived in Sutton since about the 1600s. And more recently, they now live in a place called Sheppelbury Manor, which is near Stevenage in Hertfordshire. And most of them are all big military people. But this particular guy, who later dropped off the name Heathcote to just Unwin. Now, if you know Eastfield side of Sutton, you know there's Unwin Road, which was named after this guy. And he had hosiery factories on there as well at the time. But as I say, he was an industrialist, entrepreneur, benefactor, and he was sort of a leading light at the time when the reservoir was done. Now, this is the nearest picture I could get to Sutton in Ashfield at a particular time of this story, this is around about 1895, 1900, something like that. So it's obviously not going to be changed very much at all, because a lot of these buildings still stand today. So you can see the population in 1880 was about 12,000. The employment was basically hosiery mining, brickworks and farming. And then, of course, there was health issues. Now, water in those days was drawn from local wells. And probably pumps in the street like this where water was drawn. But the problem was it was not the best of water. And as a result, Sutton in Ashfield, as was the case with many districts, had epidemics of diphtheria, cholera, and all problems, diseases associated with bad water supplies. Now this is actually Wirksworth in Derbyshire. This is a water card. One of the ways of getting around the problem was getting a better supply of water into water cars and deliver it to various locations in towns and so on and so forth. And as a result of that as well, a lot of these things came up, little cottage hospitals. Now one of these was actually built immediately across the road from where the reservoir is. these things appeared all over the place. For instance, on Southwell Road at Mansfield, just up on Lane, Forest Hospital. I can remember when I was young, that was called the Fever Hospital. Further up towards Rainworth, on the left-hand side, was a Ransom Hospital. That was classed as a fever hospital. Arlo Wood Hospital was known as the open-air hospital. I remember my dad having pneumonia, being taken to Arlo Wood Hospital. But when we went to see him, it was in winter time, and they were in bed outside. So you went there to catch pneumonia, not to get rid of it. So water is a solution to all your problems. So they sent us some samples of the water that we're getting out of the local well, somewhere down in London, to be examined. And this is a report. It said one typical specimen was recently found to contain 60 grains of mineral matter and was from 50 to 60 degrees in hardness. Other extraneous, offensive and dangerous matters also declared it. So, this is also almost Shakespearean language, isn't it? So by request of the local medical officer, they formed a committee and they appointed this guy, Mr. Walker Baseford, as civil engineer, to investigate this red sandstone strata. Right. Going back now 250 million years. As you can see from that, England was down there, was probably further south than the Tropic of Cancer. And it was at the time when mammals and dinosaurs first began to appear, according to the information that I found out anyway. Now this red sandstone, as you can see, it's shown here on this map. And basically what it is, it's a sponge. It absorbs loads and loads of water. And another attribute that this red sandstone has, it acts as a filter as well. So the water that's drawn out of this area is fairly good quality water. Now, did any of you see the news last night about this water drought that we're having? They're showing you a map of the country where the worst parts were. And the funny thing was, the worst part were along this sandstone thing. So the sponge is running out, it's dry, you know. Right, so the red sandstone in this area, there's a typical example. This isn't very on the way, anybody from up there quite familiar. In fact, you've only got to go up the road across Derby Road towards Seaswood, where that sand quarry is there. They're taking out loads and loads and loads of this stuff. They're just digging it off the top. Now, the other thing that's also in that strata is magnesian limestone, which is typically prevalent at Crestwood Crag. Now, that's known commonly as yellow sandstone. And although that doesn't look very yellow there, if you get it underground, shift the dirt off the top, it really is yellow. I remember when I was around about 18, we decided to put a pond in the lawn with my mother's up at Radlanthwaite. And we only dug down about 18 inches into the soil, and the yellow sandstone there was so bright you virtually wanted sunlight on. But the other thing about this magnesian limestone is it's a favourite habitat for ash trees, and because of that, because of the area, that's why this district is called Ashfields, because of a vast forest of ash trees. Anyway, we now need to look for some water. So the civil engineer proposed test bores of the local area to be conducted. Now this red sandstone in this area according to information on there, we had about 2,000 acres of this stuff to play with. So they did a lot of test boards. I've no idea where the test boards were done, how many they did and what. The most promising site was located at the foot of Harlowwood Hill. And this is land held by Rushley Manor Farm and owned by the Duke of Portland. So Mr. Turner, his Grace's agent, assisted Sutton local board in securing the land at a reasonable rate and also the right of laying pipes across his Grace's land to Sutton. And the local board appointed Mr. George Hodson as architect and Messrs. Foster Barry as contractors. And a water sample taken from the site at Harlowwood was sent to this Dr. Tidy of London, and he said it was absolutely excellent quality of water. So, right, to show you where we are, this is a local up-to-date map. There's the Moor Road, or the Sherwood Way as it's called. This is Nottingham Road, and as you cross Nottingham Road, you get to the foot of Harlowwood Hill, and there's where the pumping station was. And just here, past the crossroads, is Rushley Manor Farm. And the observatory is over here. So you can see we've got to get water from there to there. So if you travel along Nottingham Road, away from Mansfield, you get to the foot of Harlowwood Hill. That's where the trees start, that's where the hills start. And there's some buildings there now. One of these buildings still in use was the engineer's home, and there was another building probably at the back which was the pumping station, but that's probably all gone now because there's one or two other buildings around the back. So, but that is the site where the pumping station was. So they sunk a well, 11 foot in diameter, and sank it about 80 foot into the red sandstone. And I guess it measured it to be 200 foot in thickness. And expected to deliver 293 gallons per day, but it could be increased to 700,000 gallons by sticking an extra pump into it. And they used a 30 horsepower nominal pumping engine, boiler house and engineer's cottage all set up there. And this is one of the pumps that was used. It was made by a couple called Tangies of Birmingham. And this particular one, the plant, this is like a manual. It's believed that this particular model was the one that was actually used at Harlowwood. So this is what we've got to do. We've got to go from Rusty Pumping Station up to the reservoir, into Sutton, Uthwaite and Blackwell. And these show the different heights of those particular points along the way. Right, now the water will be conveyed 3.5 miles by road to Coxmoor using 9-inch or 23 centimetre diameter pipes. Doesn't say, there's no indication at all which way they went, just it went by road 3.5 miles, but I'll come to that in a moment. A circular covered reservoir calculated to hold 450,000 gallons, sight above sea level, and so on, and it's regarded as the same highest point in Sutton. So water can be pumped straight to the town from Harlowwood, and when the pump stood down, gravity feed, we'll take it from here down into town. So the building on top, which I noticed tonight, the roof's gone. How long's that been gone?
Since Monday.
All right, where's it gone to? Who took it down? Can't have anything, can you? So it tells us nothing whatsoever about this building on top of the reservoir. So all we can assume is there were just valves in there which could either divert the water, stop the water flowing into the reservoir, or divert it down into Sunderland. So somebody had to probably pop up here on horseback or on a bike and turn the valve. Seemingly it was probably stood it down about a couple of days a week to do a bit of maintenance work. Now then, the trenching for the piping, I have no idea whether it was dug by hand. I remember when we were first building the observatory, we had, in very early days, we had to dig a trench from here up to the main road for a water supply, so we could have a standpipe out there. The standpipe was just about opposite where the dividing wall is between the office and the kitchen, so we could have water to mix cement, mash tea, so on and so on. But digging that trench, it only had to be a spade width and a spade deep. It took a lot of doing. It was really, really hard work, and that was just from here up to the road. So these guys have got 3.5 miles, or more than 3.5 miles of this lot to do. Now, again, there was no information whatsoever whether it was done by navvies or what. Because I did find that this piece of machinery here was actually the sort of machinery that was used at that particular time to dig a trench, and that's all you need. That was plenty wide enough and deep enough. And apparently they still use this thing nowadays to do the occasional trench work or demonstrating an old piece of Victorian machinery. What powered it, I don't know. I couldn't find that out either. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be an internal combustion engine. Whether it was a steam engine or not, I'm not sure. It might even have been horse-drawn. I don't really know. Okay, right, this route. What I decided to do one day was to jump in the car, go up to the observatory, which is there, and then measure it. There's 2 ways to go from there. We'll go across here, over the 611, down through Thieves Wood, up to Arch Farm, and then back along Nottingham Road, or maybe cut that corner off there, and back to Harlow Wood, where the pumping station is. Now that measured 3.8 miles. The other way, then, having done that, and then came back this way, up what is the old Newark Road at the back of where the Cornwall Road is, and then onto the 611 here and back that way. And that makes it 2.5 miles. So that, from the text, is telling me that they went. This is the way that they went with the firework. Right. All the parts are supplied by this company, Stanton Ironworks over at Elkiston Way, and it appears that due to the Franco-Prussian War, whenever that was, I'm not sure, but due to the Franco-Prussian War, they improved their quality of kilns and so on and so forth. So they were able to make better quality materials. Now, in the text, it says that they use Montes metal, M-U-N-T apostrophe S, metal. I thought, what on earth's that? So I looked it up, but I couldn't find anything. Then I suddenly dropped onto this. Now, this is the sort of thing where obviously when the reporters at the time, whether they were given a sheet with information on, or somebody was talking, they were making notes, I don't know, which is possibly the case whereby there might have been a bit of misunderstanding. Now, going back to when we formed this society, suffered the same sort of thing. After we'd formed the society, I had the local the local newspaper, got into it, said, can I come and do an interview? So the guy came round one night, sat there with his notepad. We chatted for about 2 hours about various things and all that. And I am to mention at the time, it was round about then that the Americans were due to launch a mariner probe to Mercury. We'd never been there before, we knew nothing about it. And the idea of this probe was going to go to Mercury, to aerial photographs, and eventually make maps of Mercury. Anyway, this guy went home and obviously sat down and wrote his notes. When the article came out, we were going to build a big telescope. We were going to make maps of Mercury, you know. So, you know, the power of the press. So anyway, I managed to resolve that and found out that it is Bunce metal. Now it was a sort of, at the time it was a new kid on the block. Basically what it is, it's zinc and iron and so on, or brass, whatever. And then it's covered in copper and used a lot in boilers, but apparently that's the sort of material that was used. So we're using 9-inch pipes from the pump at Islandwood up to here. We're using 8-inch pipes from here, from the reservoir down into Sutton at 60 pounds per square inch pressure. And in total, 13.5 miles of piping for the entire system. It's a lot of pipe. So water delivery to Sutton and beyond. So we're going to go down to the town, down into Sutton from here on 8-inch pipes. And then when we get into Sutton, we start trimming it down to different diameters to go onto various streets and wherever else. And the town was divided into 4 districts, 18 stopcocks and 118 fire hydrants. And apparently there was a lot of fires in those days. The system will also supply Huthwaite, Blackwall at the rate of 7 pence per 1,000 gallons. That's 7.5 pence per 1,000 gallons by an auxiliary pumping station situated at the junction of Hucknall and Alfred Road. Now this had me baffled. I thought, Hucknall and Alfred, you know, they're quite a distance. Where's 2 roads that meet together from that area? Now, at the same time, I found in an old journal, again, 1886, 15th of January, the Hucknall Morning Star, a little item here saying the same sort of thing. We're going to supply additional supply up to Huthwaite at 7 pence per 1,000 gallons. Right. So there's the observatory, there's the pumping station. And it turns out that the junction of Hucknall Road and Alfred Road were at this point here at the top of the Lammas in Sutton, because the original name for Huthwaite was Hucknall under Huthwaite. Then that made me realise, apart from Hucknall itself, there are other places around here called Hucknall as well. Where is it? It's over. Yeah, Old Hucknall. It's in this area. Yeah, that one. That's the area. So looking at the modern day map, here's Alfred Road and here's Huthwaite, or Hucknall on the Huthwaite Road. So presumably this auxiliary pumping station was on that point then, or it could have been on that bit of green at the top of the Lammas, which in that particular area anyway. So there's a description of the names of Luthwaite, but the land of the Occaneer tribe, and Luthwaite is I know for a fact that Thwaite is an old Danish name for clearing, because where I was born at Raglan Thwaite, that apparently traces back to its Danish origin of being Reedy Marsh clearing. Right, how much does it all cost? Then it was around about £35,000. Today's money around about 5 million. So that puts us on a par with what this project is costing at the moment. Right, the grand opening. Now this is text from the actual paper itself. The event created great interest in the town. About 12 o'clock, most of the members, local board, several gentlemen assembled at the local board offices for lunch for about 45 person, by Mr. Bonson, was partaken of. The luncheon over, the company were conveyed in vehicles to the works at Harlowwood, their departure being witnessed by a large number of people. The weather could not have been more favourable, and the drive was thoroughly enjoyed. Arrived at the works, the machinery was inspected with much interest, and Mr. Hodgson explained several of the most important particulars in connection with the undertaking. He took water out of the ground and sent it over. Right, so Mr. Unwin Heathcote, I've missed out the hyphen, duly christened the pump the Hygiene, which is a Greek goddess of health, hence hygiene. And then the 45 people were transported to here at Coxmoor. None of them signed the visitors book, I've got to admit. And then they went tootled off down into Sun to the Denman's Head for a banquet. Now, how they got there and back, I've no idea. This, although it says Stenton, so this is obviously Nottingham, but that was the typical of the public transport of the time. You know, that was the bus at the time, the double-decker bus. So how many people that would hold? Probably about 15 or 16 people. So they'd need probably at least 3 of those. I've no idea. I don't know. It was. It just made me think. Well, how the hell did that lot get from there to over there and back up here? Right. Now I'm going to divert a little bit now, because in 1913, Coxmoor Golf Club was formed. Party of businessmen had a meeting in Sun, decided they wanted to build a golf club, and quite quickly they bought the land where this observatory is. And initially it was a 9-course golf course, 9-hole golf course. All the 9 holes were on the far side, on the other side of the road. It runs past here. And on the land where the observatory stands now, they built their clubhouse. Now, when we moved in here, the only thing we found of any traces of any foundation, we found I think it was a part of a wall which was probably their cellar, which was over here in the corner where the portable telescope would go. Anyway, roughly 1960, they left this particular area and moved up just up further up the road. That was the new clubhouse. This is the entrance that we're all familiar with. And probably one day when our project, we might have a nice entrance like that, hopefully. This is dial, Mr. Chris.
If you're struggling, Dave, you left and right on the keyboard.
Before we moved here, we approached Mansfield Council for a piece of land to build the Observatory, and they offered us a plot of land at the junction of Abbott Road and Brinkin Lane to say, but they pointed out that in a while they were going to build this what they call the Mar Road, the Mansfield and Sutton bypass road. So they thought, probably it's not such a good place for us after all. So of course we eventually finished up with the land we have here. So as I say, all we had then was the driveway around there. We got that lot for £50. And then it didn't take us long. Gordon, myself, a couple of others, we sneaked into this way. It wasn't a case of breaking in, it was easy to get in through the building at all and down the ladder inside. And one of the first things we said was, wouldn't it be nice if this could be turned into a planetarium? That's in 1972. I was a bit forward thinking, a bit ambitious. And as we said, yeah, and if we grow, we can have other things like radio astronomy and so on and so forth, proper optics for the telescope and so on and so forth. And pipe dreams at the time. Right, so when we started work on the land here, as you can see here, it was very, very tight at the side here, not much we were doing. So we started to take away some of the banking there and take it around the other side and build up the banking around there to give us more room around the observatory. And in doing that, we found these. Now you all know the story about the Roman coins. The Roman coins, most of you have seen them. If not, they're in the office. They can be viewed. And at the time, or some time after, I kept them in a pouch at home, and round about that sort of time, or a few years after that anyway, I used to quite like watching Time TV. And on one of their programs, they said, if ever you find anything, the thing to do is get in touch with your local small finds office. So, oh, right, I'll look at this. Well, the nearest one in this area was at Derby. I got in touch with the one at Derby. I was speaking to the officer, Rachel Atherton. I told her what we'd found. And she says, oh, there's a coincidence. She says, because there's an exhibition at Mansfield Museum in 2 weeks' time. She says, would you come there and bring the coins with you? So I said, yeah, no problem. So I went there and she set up the camera and that and took some extremely good close-up pictures of the Roman coins. And stood them away to study them. And when she sent the reports back, with the date of the coins, I mean, they're worth absolutely nothing whatsoever. But she says, because there are 3 coins, that's classed as a hoard. 2 coins is 2 coins. Any more than 2 coins is classed as a hoard. And as such, the land here at the observatory becomes an official archaeological site. So there we go. Right, then in 2014, we acquired the land and the reservoir. Now, when our friend Sparky put the TARDIS up at the side there, I pointed out to him, I says, oh, you put TARDIS right where we found the Roman coin. And he says, oh, that's interesting. He said, I wonder if there's anything else. I said, well, I've no idea. So, I'll have a go. So he got himself one of these. Off he went, and then what I found, you can't constantly caption at the top. That's what it said. Look what I found. So you can see now the sheer size of this thing out there. You can see these concrete arches. Now, this arches run this way, and arches run the opposite way, 90 degrees to them. They're different heights. And then inside, we've got, as you're all familiar with, all these pillars. Now, these are on 15-foot centres. Each of these faces on these pillars is 20 inch. So you've got 20, you've got 5 foot there, 5 foot there, 10 foot in between them. Now, I found when I was doing some search work, I found another reservoir down somewhere in the southeast of London area, which has got similar brick built pillars on the inside, and there was a reason given for that. They said it was to break up the mass of water, So it basically what it did, it made the whole volume of water, broke it down into effectively smaller quantities, probably to relieve some of the pressure. I don't quite know. But as you can see, the internal height is about 20 foot. The walls, the outside wall here, this one, they're about 20 inches thick. 16 of those brick pillars, and it'll hold 450,000 gallons. That works out to just over 2,000 tons of water. And then in 2016, Martin Braddock, you might remember this, Steve, he called for a meeting for anybody who was interested in this planetarium project. I was straight to us, said, well, the thing to do is take the 4 pillars out of the middle and drop a planetarium in there. But the planetarium has to be within another structure. It can't be an outside structure on its own, otherwise it's one of these portable things. So the two variations you've got on the planetariums are the basic ground level full dome, or what we're going for is the tilted dome with what we call the unilateral seating. Right, the dome diameter versus the number of seats. So you can see there, these aren't hard and fast figures, they're only approximates. What we're looking at is, in our case, a 10-metre dome, which should seat around about 80 or 90 people in comfort. Now, this was our design done between Steve and myself of the original thing. We've got this planetarium inside the reservoir. We put an extension on the outside with various rooms for office, toilet, kitchen, so on and so forth, the general entrance. And the cost, how much does a planetarium cost? We don't know. I can tell you now that the seats in a planetarium are, when it's built and when you use it, be careful, don't spill your drinks or anything like that, because these seats cost about £300 each. Right, so I thought only one thing to do is have a look, find out who the major players are in providing a planetarium. First one that came was, of course, Zeiss and Jena in Germany. So I composed an email asking for details, saying, look, our society is planning to fund this planetarium, and we're hoping to get funding for it. And that, can you give us some idea of what's required and roughly how much it's going to cost, so we know what we're looking at? And I spent a lot of time, both with email and on the telephone, to this lady up here, Anne Lakey, who was head of technical sales. And I got to learn quite a lot about planetarium. She sent me a load of plans and details and information and that, and quite honestly, it started to get head banging. So then I thought, well, all right, who else? I found this company in America, Spitz. And again, spoke to their head of technical sales, this lady, Joyce Tam. And again, I spent a lot of time emailing and on the telephone with her. And she also sent me a load of information. And basically what happens with it is that rather than say, right, this is a planetarium and it's going to cost whatever, they give you basically a list of parts. It's like you going down to I don't know, say the Ford agent in Mansfield and saying, right, you know, I'm interested in this particular car, how much does it cost? And what they do, they give you a list of different engines and the price of these different engines, and seats and different prices, and bodywork different prices, and so you have to make it up yourself, you know. And this is how it was with these planetariums. There's so many options on the type of dome you could have, the type of screen you could have, the type of sound system you could have, etc., etc., etc. So until you sat down and placed an order with a specific specification, they weren't really able to say, this is going to cost you this much money. Then, after all this lot, we found this company just down the road at Lutterworth, Olivis. Now, I was busy with this ice spin, so I asked Steve if he wouldn't mind dealing with these people, which he did. And actually, they came up here and gave an excellent presentation on Wednesday night on the planetarium and so on and so forth. And as I say, they're just down the road, you know. What these people specialise in is flight simulators and things like that, but planetariums, it's all part and parcel of the same thing anyway. Unless you're going for 4D, which is a motion sensor one. Right, Heritage Fund. Now, when these people came on board, they sort of intimated that it'd be nice if we didn't interfere with the internal structure of the reservoir, you know, so we could leave it intact as a heritage building, as it. So with that in mind, we had to change the design. This was now to leave the inside of the reservoir as it was and just break it up into different rooms and so on and so forth. Put an extension on the outside of the planetarium in it. This was designed again that Steve and I came up with. And then when the architect got onto it, they said, "Oh no, we've got better plans than that." And this is the architect, or this is the architect company that we've selected to deal with our project, Clay Roberts and Bell. So this is This is obviously an image that you're all quite familiar with now. And we also had to pick a planetarium supplier. And we picked RS Cosmos of Sorbier in France. Now this is their building in Sorbier. Now none of these places actually build planetariums. All the stuff is made from by other people, and the contractors that work for these people come on and put the whole thing together. What happens inside buildings like this is they design all the software and such that runs the planetarium. And they work it hand in hand with these people as ST engineers. So when the project starts moving, these are the people that's going to come here and put the whole planetarium together. And one of the things that you get with the RSA Cosmos is this particular program, the Sky Explorer and dome casting. Now, what dome casting will do is, probably most of you already know anyway, it will link any other planetarium around the world that's on the same station that this our system will be on. We can link up and we can either watch their program or they can watch our program. So you can see the master command and control to any own remotely. Right, so what we've got to do now is, that's what it's like at the moment, and that's possibly how it could be. So it's a question of transition now to get it from that state to that state. So what we've got in here is the old reservoir as it was. Now, one of the first things we've got in preparation is get rid of all this calcite trace. That's got to be gotten rid of. And then the water. Now, there's like, for want of a better description, there's a fish tank inside there, which is water. Now, that water runs all the way back to Harlow Wood. And I'll go and see what that says. Yeah, in this piping between here and Harlow Wood, it's capable of holding almost 51,000 gallons of water. Now, the vast majority of that water will still be in those pipes. They would never have drained it out and let it run away into the land. So what they obviously did at Harlow Wood end, they drained it to a point, then capped it, sealed it off. That's what they're going to have to do at this end. They'll suck so much of the water out and cap it off. So there's going to be thousands of gallons of water still trapped forever in the piping. Now we've heard about this drought system that we're running into. Now what we could do here, we could make some money. Take that water out there, bottle it and sell it. You know, I mean, it's 50,000 gallons. I mean, litre bottle, say £1 a litre, how many litres is it in 50,000 gallons? You know, it's what we do. When and why?
Are you planning a little health scam?
What we do know what was the reservoir for water? It's going to become a reservoir for knowledge. Right, now, here, done by Barry, is a handout sheet, an information sheet for when we show people around the reservoir. What I've done here, I've talked about it. It's improved the information on that. Rob's got this, so we can print off loads and loads of these to give to people as a handout. Right. Now, what's this extra planning got to do with the reservoir? Now, as it turns out, the data that we've got from the particular Kepler telescope object started its journey around about the same time that it started work on the reservoir. So that's 150, about 140 years ago. So because of that, if I've not spoken to the IAU, International Astronomical Union, about it, but I've given this exoplanet a name. Right, so all you new members, how many new members have we got here tonight? Is this your first time you've been here, is it? You probably say after this, it will be the last as well. You've got a lot to look forward to. Over the years, as I say, we planned that in time, perhaps we'll have planetary radio astronomy. Now, thanks to people like Michael Knowles and Sparky, we've now got radio astronomy well and truly up and running. The telescope, the 24-inch, all the way along. Now, in the early days, we went to Group Parsons up in Newcastle, and we got very friendly with their chief optical engineer, Dave Sinden. Dave Sinden and his colleague up there, Dave Brown, were considered at the time as the best telescope optical engineers in the world. So we went up there, we had a long discussion with Dave Sinden, and he was absolutely enthusiastic about our particular project. And he realised the problem was, you know, how much light expansion glass was. So he suggested, why don't you make it out of plate glasses? There are telescopes, professional telescopes, with plate glass mirrors, i.e. there's a 6-inch at Mount Wilson, the 100-inch hooker at Mount Wilson, which is what Hubble used when he did his galaxy classifications. And then when he found out that Ellery Hale was going to build a 200-inch at Palomar, Hubble cornered him and said, look, whatever you do, do not use plate glass mirrors. He says, there's so many vagaries in plate glass mirrors. He says it just becomes unworkable. So out of all this lot, Dave Sinden suggested that we use plate, so we decided to make it out of plate glass. And we said, one day we'll be able to put proper glass, low expansion glass in. Now, that project is underway. New optics have been ordered, they're being processed. Eventually they will get here, they've got to be installed in the telescope, we've got to change the mirror cell, got to change the balance of the telescope, but it's going to make it. What Dave Sinden says after he reworked the mirror that's in there at the moment, because it was in such a bad way. And he said, when he'd done this, because it cost us the best part of £3,000 then, and that was a lot of money in those days. But what he said was, you haven't got a large amateur telescope. He says, what you've got now with this mirror is a small professional telescope. That's the way he classed his mirror. Now, the problem with the mirror we've got in at the moment, it's got a very, very bad turn down end, which means there's an iris system built within the telescope, which probably a lot of you aren't aware of. But the idea of that was to stop the mirror down from a 24-inch diameter to a 23-inch diameter mirror. But anyway, we can forget all that. It's having a new set of optics in. Chris, over a few years, has installed a new mechanical drive system. We've got rid of, I mean, the original thing was chain and pulleys, chain and sprockets. We changed that then to timing belts and pulleys. That's now been changed to a couple of proper gearboxes that run in tandem. And the whole thing is driven, it's converted down to a go-to telescope with servo motors driving it, little shaft encoders on the motor on the end of the shaft. And the two communicate a bit of electronic committee meeting until the motor speed up, slow down, so everything can work precisely. We've also got, as you're probably aware of, we've acquired an 18-inch reflecting telescope. So that's something else. That will we'll find a home for that after this project's been done up there. And so we've got this project as well. So as I say, you new members have come at a really, really exciting time. So all I can say is I've done my bit. I've done my bit. I just want you to all just enjoy it, what it's going to be, because it's going to be unbelievably fantastic. Thank you, everybody.